That's a them.
That's
That's
a
a them
them.
problem.
That's a
That's a
them
them
problem.
problem. That's a them problem.
That's a them
That's a them
problem.
problem.
That's a them problem.
That's a them problem.
That's a them problem. That's a them problem.
This is your panic guide to the world ending. What an intro. Hi guys, welcome back to That's a Them Problem with your host, Nick. Hi, Nick the Slick, Nick the Long Dick, Nick the Anxious, I don't know, Nick the Anxious. I feel like that's a cool name, don't you think, Nick the Anxious? Today's topic, actually wait, before we get into the topic, how are we doing? How is the world feeling to everyone? How has October been for you so far? Again, happy Pride Month to all the queers and all the allies. I don't know why I say all the allies, because y'all don't... Anyway. Damn. It's been a while since it's just been me on the pod, so I hope that this episode is not at all boring or unstimulating to y'all. And at the same time, I want to thank all the guests that have been on so far. Jody, Matthew, Dilo, Yabo. Thank you so much for just taking the time out of your days, out of your lives to spend time with me and to talk about some random shit that like makes my head spin. And I also just wanted to tell you that I appreciate the friendship that we've all cultivated. I appreciate the love that we all share and the space that we hold for each other, because I don't think the episodes would have been as successful had we not been able to have that rapport. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You make creating so much easier and so much better and so much more fun. So thank you. Just also a random side note, we're just going to get through all the random shit in my head before we actually get into the topic. This weekend was crazy. Crazy in the sense that I was reminded why I love music so much. It reminded me how transcendental music is and how connected I am to it. And like in the conversation I had with Yabo, with Kabo, I want to make it known all the time that music has given me everything. Music has given me a sense of identity. Music has given me the community that I am in right now. Music has given me the love that I now feel for myself and for other people. Music has given me clarity. And music has soothed the sense of doom that I feel. I feel like that's the best segue into the conversation, but I'm still not done talking about the weekend. I just want to also say that I realized that I'm also one of those people that I cannot go a lifetime, I can't go a month, I can't go a week, I can go a day without creating something. I feel like I am useless without making something or putting something together or making a vision come to life. I feel like that's what I've been put on this earth to do, is to not only bring people together with like my energy in the way that like I know my energy brings a sense of community. I know my energy brings a sense of comfort to a lot of people, and I'm extremely grateful for that because I didn't have that growing up. And to give back to the energy that I wish that I had, and to now be receiving that energy because of what I put out, is also just full circle and very fulfilling. So if you fall into that scope of my life, then I just also want to say thank you. I'm very grateful at this very moment, and at the same time, this looming dread feeling that we're going to get into. Today's topic is surviving the world ending. Or what did I write down? Usually I write down the topic's name because it's usually catchy and I'm a copywriter. How to survive the world ending. That is the topic. How to survive the world ending. And it's not really about the world ending. It's really just about anxiety and about my experiences with anxiety, how it affects me, how it could possibly affect you that's listening, how we could possibly share in our experiences and feel like we're not alone. I would say that if you have existential dread, if you have a looming feeling that time is moving too fast or moving too slow, if you feel that there's always this constant, I'm not going to call it bitterness, I'm not even call it numbness. I don't know if this is gonna make sense, but you know when you have like a phantom pain in like a joint, like it's not there, but you can feel it. You know what I mean? I think I've always been an anxious kid, to be quite honest with you. My parents are extremely anxious people. ironically, if anyone has met my father, he seemingly is a very confident man and a very high-strung, security-driven man. But his job, the way he thinks about people, is all rooted in the fact that he is a very scared man. And that's not a bad thing. But I would assume that it's a very difficult thing to move through life being so scared all the time. And scared in the sense that he's very good at predicting risk. And I grew up basically believing that, like, if I'm not moving through life and through people fast enough, that I will get into trouble and that bad things would happen to me. And I feel like anyone who knows me knows that I walk at a very, very fast pace. I'm very vigilant when I'm on the street. In dire need in times, like, I can be quite resourceful, but also at the same time, like, in dire needs, I kind of understand where risk and problems could go to the point where sometimes I don't even go out. I feel like that's the reason why I'm not such a extrovert in that way. Like, I'm an extrovert when you meet me, but I don't go out. I don't go out to party. Like, this weekend was the most I've been out in, like, a very long time. I would say, like, years, to be honest with you. And that's just because my anxiety for being outside and the risk of being outside and the bad things that could happen outside has taken over my sense to enjoy things, to experience things, to put myself out there. And that also couples with social anxiety. That also couples with my anxiety of men. And when I talk about anxiety of men, I just mean my fear of men. I'll be quite honest with you. I dislike men, but it's also because I fear them. And that shouldn't... I don't have to explain that. I don't have to explain that. As a femme person living in this life, experiencing life and moving through this life, as a queer femme person moving through this life, I don't have to explain why I'm afraid of men. All of that is because I grew up with really anxious parents, coupled with now my own anxiety of life. I don't know. I think where my anxiety actually stems from is obviously from my parents and being an anxious person and being taught to be very anxious and very, like, self-aware. But to the point of self-awareness just becomes awareness. It becomes so far away from me that, like, I forget how I feel. And so when I started, like, experiencing my own, like, deals with anxiety and my own triggers, I realized that I couldn't regulate myself, to the point where I did have a moment of like a lot of panic attacks, not to the point of being diagnosed with panic disorder, but it was also around the time that my parents got divorced. And it wasn't because they got divorced, it was because of all the tension in the house, because again, the anxiety got to everyone else. They started panicking, started having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and no one could basically hold each other up, to be quite honest with you. And so it became also an anxious trigger of mine. To the moment I feel the energy has dipped, the moment I feel like someone is about to either cry or be hard on themselves or get into their head, I can immediately sense that because of the trigger, because of being in a household like that. And so one of my anxiety triggers is, like, if someone else around me is anxious, I immediately start getting into, let's just call it a glorified trauma response, but I just constantly want to help, do you know what I mean? And I constantly want to alleviate that stress, that pain, that discomfort, almost to the detriment of myself, to be quite honest with you. And only in the past few years have I realized that, firstly, I don't need to be there for everyone because it's not my place to. But also, it's really important and it's something to honor and to respect when people allow you to also help them when they're in that space. And I'm not there yet, to be quite honest. I still don't have the capacity to allow people to help me when I'm going through something anxious, to the point where something will happen to me. I'll already go through it. I'll already experience it. I'll already cry by myself. And then only after the fact will I then, like, message someone and be like, hey, this happened to me. And then I'll be able to talk about it. But that's only after the fact. Like, I cannot allow people to be in my space when I'm experiencing that trauma or experiencing that trigger. And that's really sad, because that's also the time when I feel extremely alone. And that's also a trigger too, is that the moment I feel alone is the moment I start feeling extremely anxious. Because in my mind, and I'm prefacing this by saying, in my mind, I've always been alone with my problems. Like, I've always been alone with my struggles. I've always had to deal with my shit alone. And I think I've spoken about this in a previous episode, but I've always been known as that kid that always just figures shit out. And I just want to say, when the fuck did I say that? When the fuck did I say that I have my shit together? I was like 6 and you're telling me like, nah, she'll figure it out. You're lying. You're lying. You're just lazy. You don't have the capacity to help people and their negative reactions, emotions, experiences. And so you just like cut it out and say, nah, they can deal with it themselves. If anything, if kids are being triggered or are dysregulated and are showing the dysregulation in some way, I feel like that's the perfect time to like start exercising how to be there for someone, how to be able to comfort someone in a constructive and conducive way. Because also that's where panic disorders start, dude. It's when children like act out. When children act out because of their discomfort and then they left to regulate themselves. And that's also how children grow up to like find really bad self-soothing mechanisms, because there's no one to help them soothe the feelings in their body. No one's talking them through it. No one's helping them understand why the world is feeling like it's ending. And so, you know, we resort, I'm going to say we because I'm one of them. We resort to escapism. We resort to, you know, really bad coping mechanisms. I, at least at the beginning of my life, like my escaping mechanism was, again, we're going to bring it back to art. Like I already knew with the resources that I had, because also I didn't have a lot available like to my disposal to help me soothe myself by that time. Because all my toys and all the shit that like used to basically like bring me joy as a kid, I had thrown away, you know? So the only thing I had at my disposal was like paint and like a really fucked up little box in the corner and like pieces of paper. Like that's how I used to cope with this like very distressing and uncomfortable feeling in my body, in my mind. When did I become like aware of my anxiety, actually? I think I became aware of my anxiety probably in high school, around like grade 9, 10. Again, my parents were going through their own thing. I had some friends that were also going through some shit they were putting me through shit, unfortunately. And I don't blame them now, because obviously it made me the person I am now. But yeah, the friendships weren't that great. I was in a relationship that was emotionally taxing and toxic. Like, all love to that man. All love to that man, but also anyway, like it was just not a conducive time. And I genuinely felt like I was unable, not even unable, I felt like I felt like I couldn't show up at all in any space. And I felt like I wasn't accepted in any space. I felt like I was always short of something. And so I just brought like burden and like stress onto other people. And that also made me like extremely anxious, because I just didn't want to be around anyone then. I just wanted to be in my own space. And I also couldn't go to my parents for comfort because they were going through their own thing. And again, like, I'm just going to bring it back. I'm not even going to bring it back. I'm just going to bring it up. I have this, I'm not even going to call it a mantra because I don't want to believe it anymore. But in my teenage years, there was this narrative that I believed in, where I was only existing purely for the sake of other people's needs, in the sense that I was only there to comfort other people, but no one was there to comfort me, because essentially I didn't have my own emotions. That's what I felt like. That's what I believed. And that was really hard to believe in, because essentially it feels like you don't have a purpose for yourself. You're just, you know, a resource. And I feel like that's the most distressing and most anxiety-stricken feeling, is feeling like you're just being used, you know? And so when I finally got out of that, more anxiety came in, because it's like, okay, cool, then who am I? Like, what value do I think I actually bring, besides people telling me that I have no value? Do you know what I mean? It started becoming this like back to square one, like, how am I going to show up for myself and find good parts of myself in order to combat the fact that other people were telling me the opposite or making me feel the opposite? Do you know what I mean? Wow, roundabout ways. We're only 15 minutes in. Welcome back to just me in the conversation. Do you know what I mean? Because it'll always be like really deep and like full of shit. So let's just get into some, what I would call like descriptions. Obviously I'm going to bring Google into this. It says, anxiety is the intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. Fast heart rate, rapid breathing, sweating, and feeling tired may occur. Anxiety can be normal in stressful situations such as public speaking and taking a test. Anxiety is only an indicator of an underlying disease when feelings become excessive or consuming and interfere with daily life. So obviously, if we're going to like separate it and try and diagnose it, right? If you're stressed about normal shit like, I'm gonna miss my flight, I'm gonna do shit on a test, I don't like public speaking or performance anxiety, like that's normal, right? But it's the moment when the excessive worry and the fear starts interfering with daily life to the point where it's hindering your normal daily function. Meaning, I am so scared of people that I'm never ever going to leave the house, to the point where you're not able to do shopping, you're not able to go fill your car up with petrol, you're not able to leave the house to go see your family. Like, that's when it's excessive worry, when it becomes so over consuming of your entire psyche and body that you feel paralyzed to do something, essentially. And then obviously when it comes to like treatment, you could do self-treatment, not self-diagnosis, but like self-healing in a sense, but that also comes with support from other people. Like any underlying disease, though I'm gonna quote what Google told me, like any underlying disease, it at some point becomes a chemical situation, a chemical imbalance of some kind, because obviously your body is so pumped up. Okay, for example, anxiety. Your body is so pumped up with cortisol and with adrenaline all the time that like it fucks up the hormone balance of your body. And so you're consistently worried. Like, it's no longer about you having to think about the worry. It's that it lives in your body. Like the chemicals in your body are already active. They're already there to like panic. Do you know what I mean? And so at some point, like, self-care doesn't help. And some people do need medical intervention, which is not a bad thing. I mean, power to everyone who takes the step to help themselves further than just... Actually, power to people who realize that they can't do it alone and they can't do it by just trying to like regulate their body by themselves, because sometimes it's difficult. I feel like at this point, if I don't... Because it's not like I haven't figured out ways to like manage my anxiety, but if I don't keep continuously practicing to regulate my anxiety, to calm my nervous system down, to lower my cortisol levels, especially when I'm trying to sleep at night, I'm going to have to figure out a means to get medical intervention. Like, because I don't want to go my whole life burdened by the fear of just being alive, to be quite honest with you. Like, that's the anxiety that I have. I have anxiety of being alive. I have anxiety of having sickness. I have anxiety of having pain in my body. Oh, that's another thing. Like, trauma and anxiety to me, especially when it comes to like living and being in a body, maybe not most of you know, but the people that know me know, I had a really freak accident with my knees, and I had emergency surgeries. On one knee in particular, I had 2 emergency surgeries in like the space of like 8 months. So it happened like, I think it was in like December, and then in like August, September the year after, like it happened again. And the fear of being in pain and then being in pain is such a scary place to be. I don't know how else to describe it, but there's that fear. Going to the doctor, going to the hospital is another anxiety of mine, because just sickness in general to me is like the biggest trigger. Having to sit in like a doctor's fucking office, the anxiety of needles and being pierced through my skin, that fucking freaked me out. the fear of dying on the table, the fear of dying on an operating table because of a freak-ass accident that you had no power over. It literally just happened in an instant. Basically, I'll tell you the story. Roundabout. I was in grade 8 or 9, and during this time, my friends and I, we would like put together these choreographed dances. So basically, like, I was dancing a lot. I was doing cheerleading at school. Like, I was doing a lot of active shit with dancing, basically. And this story doesn't involve me dancing. That's the fucked up part. Basically, it was like during a weekend, and my dad was fixing his car. And the way that this complex that I lived in worked is that there was obviously a road that went around the complex, but there was no like fences or walls. So essentially, like, when my dad parked the car, like, it was right on the road. And my dad was working on the car, and he was like looking at the car, and I was standing in the middle of the road looking at the car. I'm just standing, genuinely just standing, like standing still, like standing in line, standing in a queue. Like, I'm not doing anything. I was literally standing. And I remember this loud click sound happened. I don't even know if I can describe the feeling or the sound to you, but literally before that sound went off, I'm gonna say it went off. Before I heard that sound, everything went quiet, and then I heard this like that's what it sounded like. I hope, yeah, it sounded like that. I heard that sound, and then like 2 seconds later, I fell to the floor. There was just this sharp, like, it didn't even feel like pain at the beginning. It felt like my body had shifted. I don't know, it felt like my body had shifted from where I stood just an inch off. Like, it felt like, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm having like my heart is starting to like beat really fast because I can't even describe how fucked up that whole situation was because it just happened in an instant. But anyway, I heard the click. I felt like my body shift like an inch to the side. I fell to the floor, and then all of a sudden it was the sharpest pain I can ever describe to you. It just moved up my body straight to my head and then back to like my legs. And you know when something is so painful that you can't even cry immediately, I literally started going, ow, 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 and I just got progressively louder until I just started crying. And mind you, while I was going, ow, ow, my dad thought I was laughing, so he didn't immediately help me. Like, I was about like 3 minutes into like almost crying before he had to pick me up like behind my back and like under my knees because he realized that I was actually in pain. And this was on a weekend, so hospitals are not like operated on a weekend. Like, maybe emergency surgery, the emergency unit, whatever, the ER. Yeah, that place is working. But if you want to see a doctor, you have to wait till Monday, and that's exactly what I did. I went to the ER. They wrapped my knee in some fucking bandage. They gave me like painkillers, and then they said I must come back on a Monday. I went home. I was in pain. I couldn't move my leg. My leg was swollen as fuck. Like, my knee was so swollen, like quadruple the size of my other leg. And on Monday, I was still... So this happened on a Saturday. On the Monday, I was still so hopeful that nothing bad had actually happened. Because I put on my school uniform, I went with my parents to the hospital, and I said, nah, they're just going to look at my knee and I'm going to go straight back to like school. That's why I showed up in my school uniform. And I shit you not, I sat in the doctor's like office. I waited like 4 minutes for him. He looked at my knee. He basically, I wish I could show you. Listen, I'm working on the visual episode so that I can show you shit. But he basically like just pressed my knee with like his thumb and his middle finger. Like, he kind of like squeezed it a little bit, and he's like, oh no, we need like he just looked at my knee and did that, and he's like, okay, no, we need emergency surgery, you're not going anywhere today. And I was rushed into like the actual hospital part of the medical facility, whatever the fuck. And it got like, my anxiety was so bad, I was like shaking in fear so bad that one of the nurses actually came to me with like 2 calm meds and said, you can't go into surgery until you take these. Yeah, and then just the fear of dying on the operating table, to be quite honest. When I came to after the operation, like having that pain, realizing that I might be allergic to morphine, realizing that morphine doesn't actually work on me, because the moment that I woke up, I felt like every cut that they made, every like stitch that they did, all the shit that they had to like pull out to like attach, like it's so funny how when I think about the memory, I feel the pain in my mind, but my body doesn't remember that pain, which is so crazy. I feel like that's also what happens to like pregnant women, is that like it is so painful in the moment, but the moment it's over, the body doesn't remember the pain. Same thing with tattoos. Like, it's sore when you get it, but the moment it's over, like, the body doesn't remember how the needle feels. The mind does, but the body doesn't. Fuck. It's just so crazy how the body and mind works, to be quite honest with you. But anyway, and how the body processes trauma versus how the mind processes trauma and anxiety. That was, like, my first real intense brush with anxiety and with dealing with such bad feelings of doom. To be honest with you, I don't think I know how I've been able to cope with that. I think that I don't think about it, to be honest. I don't think about it until I'm having to speak about it or when people ask about it, because most of the time, like, my scars on my knees it's not like you can't see them. They're very, very much visible. It very much looks like I got torn up by a tiger or a lion. But very seldom people ask, and when they do, I have to not only relive all of that, but I have to explain it, and usually people don't understand how it happened, to be honest, you know. So it's been quite a ride to have, because let's be honest, I don't know what to unpack from that. And when I do talk about it, I still don't know what to unpack about that. So maybe you listening can help me unpack that. We all a community. We a community here. We share our shit together. You know what I'm saying? So help a bitch out. Figure out why she's still anxious about that whole thing. And to be quite honest, like, I'm still very much anxious about my body and about being sick and about having injury. Like, and at the same time, I don't want to go to the doctor. I'm very fearful of going to a doctor because I also have this fear that, like, I'll find something that's not particularly right with me, and then I'll still think that it's nothing. And also, maybe this is a form of, like, self-harm, is that even if you know that there's something wrong, you still don't go to the doctor. This might be turning into a very deep episode. I think let's move on. But let me just finish that thought, is that, like, I'm so fearful of being sick that even if I feel like something might be wrong, I'm too afraid to go check if it is wrong, because if it is wrong or something's worse, then, like, I'm just gonna, like, I don't want to go to a doctor thinking that, like, something's, like, 2% wrong, and then I get there and it's, like, 70% wrong and I'm actually dying. Like, I don't want, that's also a fear that I have, that I don't want it to come alive, because, again, my anxiety makes me believe that the worst possible thing will always happen. And granted, the worst possible thing hardly ever happens. But because of that, I am also driven to over-prepare to the point of, again, my detriment, to the point where I can't enjoy things, to the point where I'm like my dad. I calculate risk so much that there's never time to be present. I'm just constantly having to, I'm constantly proving my mind wrong sometimes about how bad I think things are gonna go. And that also comes with just, like, meeting people. Sometimes I am so awkward only because I don't want to be too much for people. Because I also, like, that's the thing. I don't want to be too much for people, especially when I want to make friends with certain types of people. I don't want to be too much. So I feel like I also come off it's like bitchy or like distant or like stupid sometimes, because again, I don't want to come with like the energy that I have. But then ironically, the people that are close to me say that my energy is like great. So you see, this is what anxiety does. It fucks with your normal daily function of just being able to move through life at like a normal pace. I'm not even gonna say an easy pace, because there's nothing easy about this life, dude. I've said this before, having a body is hard, having to think about things is difficult, like having to like believe that life, I get it. Anyway, let's get back to my Google Sheets. What are 5 symptoms of anxiety? I would say like feeling like nervousness, restlessness. I'm a restless ass person. I know that's my anxiety. The fact that I feel like I can't sit still for too long in one place, I know it's rooted to some deeper meaning of trauma, but I know it's expressed through anxiety. I'm reading off this drop down on Google where it says, what are 5 symptoms of anxiety? So the first one, like I said, feeling nervous, restless, and tense. The second one is having a sense of impending danger, panic, or doom. I feel like that one is the most prevalent to me, is this lingering sense of doom, lingering sense of existentialism, lingering sense of something always, there's a struggle on the horizon. That's the best way I can put it. Increased heart rate, breathing rapidly, so hyperventilation, sweating, trembling, feeling tired or weak, and trouble concentrating or thinking about anything other than the persistent or present worry. If I'm out and I'm hyper fixated on the feelings that I have of social anxiety, and I feel like I can't connect with anyone in the space, I'm unable to think about anything else. I'm unable to enjoy the smallest things out of the space that I'm in. Like, for example, this weekend, I went to an event, and at some point, my social anxiety did peak, and I was like, fuck, like, I'm unable to connect with anyone here right now. Like, I feel very alone, I feel very out of place. And then, thank God I had a little bit of liquid encouragement, but I snapped myself out of it because at the same time that I was worrying, I was dancing to one of the DJs, and they were playing like 90s house, like 90s disco. And I love that shit. Like, I love like that, like don't, like that type of shit. I love it. And I was in a split second, like I felt it, like in a split second, I was like, dude, you're literally at a club, like you're out. Like, you should be so proud that you've got yourself out. You should be enjoying the fact that like there's music and people playing. Like, there's music and there's people sharing their energy with you so that you can have a good time. So just enjoy yourself. And literally in that moment, I felt myself being anxious to like me while I'm moving, just letting go of like that like tenseness in my chest and in my shoulders. And I just enjoyed that moment of just listening to music and being able to move my body, dude. Like, a way to combat panic is to move your body, to practice being as present as possible, to look around and to ground yourself in the space that you're in. One thing that, so my fellow anxiety-stricken babes, Tsepang Muji, Big Chief, I remember that we, like a couple of years ago, I want to say like a year and a half ago, to be honest with you, it's when we made Indie Out. I think that's when we were having more conversations with each other. But essentially, he expressed to me that like he suffers from really bad anxiety and like social anxiety at that, and he just, and I had dealt with it for a while before having this conversation with him. And one thing that I learned about, but I never practiced, but because of him I started practicing more, was the 5 senses, which is a grounding practice mechanism. It just helps you be more present. It helps you alleviate some of the anxiety that you might feel from being socially anxious. But the 5 senses are 5 things that you can see. So you look for 5 things that you can see. 4 things that you can hear. So a person talking, a car driving, the wind through the leaves, me talking, the buzz of the fridge, for example. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things that you can feel. So your t-shirt, the chair or whatever you're sitting on, your bag that you're carrying, the texture of the bag, the plate or the cup in front of you, your phone, an ice block. Do you know what I mean? Like something that you can feel. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, 2 things you can smell. Your t-shirt, the smell around you, smoke, food, something, okay? And 1 thing you can taste. It can be water, it can be your spit, it can be a sweet, it can be but basically you're activating all your senses in order for your body to feel more present in the space right now. And it's helped me in really, really bad moments. I know that it's helped Tsepi. Genuinely so grateful that in some ways I was able to learn how to calm myself down again, and was able to share a means and a way in order to calm someone else down. Like, that made me feel more firstly in tune with my own anxiety, but also more comforting that the energy around me that I would probably be around more would be less anxious, essentially. Fucking anyone who deals with trauma in a like medical or like spiritual or like holistic way will tell you to move your body. Like, I've also spoken about this in a previous episode where like sometimes trauma and anxiety is stuck in the body, and the only way to get rid of it is to move your body, to shake it out. If you shake your body a couple of times, there's no way you can feel anxious after that. That's just the reality of the situation. And sometimes that's what I do. Like, a lot of the time when I'm going through a really rough time and I'm home alone, sometimes I will literally put my phone on, I'll put my speaker on, and I'll connect and play music, and I'll just move my body, but extreme. Like, I'll stretch, and I'll remember some of the dance moves I used to do when I was a kid, and fully extend my leg and fully extend my body. Like, I'll make sure that I can feel the stretch in every part of my body, because I want to be able to move all that stagnant energy and anxiety out of me. And usually 90%, 99% of the time, after I have those sessions where I'm allowing myself to move and stretch and exist as big and as boldly as I need to, I feel so much better. I feel so much more connected to myself, to my body, to my feelings, to the space around me. I feel more safe in those spaces when I'm able to have those sessions where I'm just able to put on my speaker and just move around the room and dance and stretch and do my thing. And I feel like I need to get into that, because now that I'm talking about it, I haven't done that in so long. And I encourage you, like anyone who's listening right now and is dealing with really bad anxiety, I implore you to just try that. To put on some music really loud, to put on some socks on not a slippery floor, but enough for you to be able to really stretch and move as freely as you need to, without the restriction of sticky floor or whatever, because also if you have a sticky floor, then you might just twist your ankle. But I just need you to practice this and just push your body, not to its limit, but to the extent where you feel like you're finally connected to the childlikeness of being in movement and being happy in your body. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's also where I kind of found a level of body euphoria, I think. I feel like that's where I also learned how to love my body more. Because the moment, and also I implore you to, while you're dancing and stretching your body out and moving as freely as you want to, I implore you to have some type of mirror or something, so that you can see yourself enjoying moving and existing in your body. It's one thing to feel it, but it's one thing to also see it and feel it. It's a different type of energy that also encompasses yourself. And because of doing that, especially I did that a lot in COVID when I was just going through a lot in my head, I realized there's so many parts of myself and of my body that I actually do appreciate and love about myself. How beautiful is it that my body's able to take me from point A to point B? Because I walk a lot, I take a lot of public transport, but it's so beautiful to know that my body's able to do that for me. It's so beautiful to recognize that my body's able to move and push itself to certain angles and positions, and it's having a body is beautiful, and seeing how a body is able to move when it's not restricted by anxiety, when it's not restricted by space, by time, by sound. It's just so beautiful. It's so fluid. And I feel like that's also where I realized that I am not my body too. It's so crazy. You realize how important your body is, but you realize how separate you actually are from your body. Your body is the vessel that holds the energy that you are in. And then that also made me realize, and also made me recognize, that I actually do have a really cool energy that inhabits this body that I'm in. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we're great on topic, because we moved from what makes me anxious to what has saved me. You know what I mean? Also, just talking positivity into your body, talking positivity into your mind. Even if it's just I'm having a really bad thought right now, but that thought is not me. It's just something that has something that the Midnight Gospel speaks about is that you're like being able to practice observing your thoughts is a healthier way to not let the anxiety become all consuming and encompassing. The reality of the matter is that everyone thinks fucked up thoughts. Everyone thinks bad things are going to happen to them or other people, whatever the fuck. But it doesn't mean that it directly comes from you or is a part of you. Like, you can have a really bad thought and just acknowledge the fact that you had it, but you don't have to act on it, and you also don't have to believe that it's from you. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes just things pop into our head. We consume things all the time, and sometimes the way that like the brain and the mind processes things, sometimes just fucked up things happen. Intrusive thoughts are real. Do you know what I mean? And that's also something that also I know pushed my anxiety to a certain like high level of extent, is that like I believed that I was just my intrusive thoughts. Like I generally thought that I was a horrible person because of my intrusive thoughts. And then I realized that, like, firstly, I know for a fact that I'm not the only one thinking about these things. And second, I'm not going out of my way to act on them. I'm not going out of my way to employ them. I'm not going out of my way to believe that I actually believe that it's real. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, we carry on. I just want to extend, not even a hand, I want to extend a hug to everyone and anyone who feels that their anxiety might be the reason for a lot of things not happening. And I just want to say that energy is consistently moving, and the moment you're able to not release the energy, because anxiety will always be there. Everyone, like I said, normal anxiety is a thing, you know, test taking, performance, and it's always going to be there. But I feel like the moment you allow the energy to be more fluid, the more space there is for other things to come in and for things to settle. I feel like when energy is so tightly gripped, there's no space for other things to come in. There's no other space for other feelings or emotions or experiences to come in, because you're so tightly held to this feeling of doom and of expected worry and panic. And I'm still practicing not feeling like that. Do you know what I mean? I still very much all the time when I'm out, like I will say, when I get there, I'll be like, yeah, I'll stay till the end of the event. And then halfway through, I'm like, nah, I think I need to leave now, because I can feel, it's a build of adrenaline even, I would say. It's like I can feel something. I feel, obviously we're going to say that feelings are not fact, but I start feeling like something bad is progressively getting closer to me. And so it's again this need to like, okay, now I need to move. It's just unpacking a lot of shit for me too, to be honest, having this conversation. But I feel like that's also why I wanted to do this podcast, is because in many ways I'm able to have conversations like this with people, but I'm also able to acknowledge the conversations I've been always wanting to have with myself, you know. So in a way, this community is building and growing me as well. I have this mantra. I still have it on SoundCloud, on my profile, but it says, if we heal ourselves, we heal the community. And I truly believe that, like, it has to start with you, and the more you allow love and light into your life, then you're able to share that. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like I've been able to do that, at least in the smallest capacity that I'm able to give out. Do you know what I mean? That was a lot. It's a very short episode, this one, because it's just me. But I just want to say thank you for spending time with me once again. Episode 9, fucking crazy. 10 episodes left until season 2. Deep breaths. One thing that I say to my partner, my bae, especially when he's going through something, is you are loved, you are appreciated, you are everything. I realize how important those words are, not just saying them to someone, but to believe for yourself that you are loved, you are appreciated, you are everything. And so I just want to share that sentiment with y'all and tell you guys, this little community that we've built, that you are loved, you are appreciated, and you guys are everything. Things like this don't exist without you. So I just want to, in a very cheesy and a very like warm-hearted ending of a podcast that I don't think we've had ever, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Until we talk again next week. Bye.